All right. Good evening and welcome to the September 17th, 2024 Findlay City Council regular session. We will start this evening's meeting with roll call, followed by a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence.
Mr. Ballman, Mr. DeArmond,
Here.
Ms. Frischi,
Here.
Mr. Greeno,
Here.
Mr. Hellman,
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Here.
Mr. Palmer,
Here.
Mr. Russell,
Here.
Ms. Warnicki,
Here.
and Mr. Wobser.
Present.
Mr. Baumann contacted me earlier today, said he has a touch of the stomach flu and could not make this evening's meeting. I will entertain a motion to excuse. Mr. Russell?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of excusing Mr. Baumann say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. He is excused. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will accept a motion to accept the September 3rd regular session City Council meeting minutes. Mr. Palmer,
So moved.
second, Mr. Niemeyer. Discussion, hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. They are accepted. Mr. Russell, do we have any add-on replacements or removal from tonight's agenda?
Yes, a replacement for ordinance 2024-112. Just some minor changes in wording and the actual funds, transfer. I make a motion that the ordinance be replaced as distributed.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adding the verbiage as described, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The changes will be made. We have no proclamations, recognition, or retirement resolutions. We do have a petition.
Petition for annexation for County Road 220, County Road 99, also known as Sheets, also known as CSP Investments Incorporated. It is for 21.724 acres of land for parcel number 02-000-101-5352, currently in Allen Township.
Questions or comments? Resolution will be created. We have 2 oral communications that will be under new business. We have no written communications, reports of officers and departments.
City Income Tax Monthly Collections Report for August 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
City Planning Commission agenda for September 12th, 2024, as well as the staff report of September 12th, 2024, and the minutes of August 8th, 2024.
Questions or comments? The agenda and report and minutes will be filed.
Findlay Police Departmental Activities Report for August 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report for August 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Summary Financial Reports for August 31st, 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Treasurer's Reconciliation Report for August 31st, 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Income Tax Board minutes for May 1st, 2024, as well as the draft minutes for August 7th, 2024.
Questions or comments? Mr. Stashak.
Hey, just real quickly, I want to point out on page 3 of the May 1st minutes that there was a lengthy discussion, and to make council know that we do acknowledge that us collecting income taxes for other communities puts us at risk for a lawsuit by a person similar to what George Martins has done to us down the road. And hence my ongoing concern with that. But I just want to make all of council aware that we do have liability and do take on risk when we do services for other communities. Thank you.
Ms. Frischi?
So is there an opportunity to have some kind of a special liability coverage?
Mayor?
Our insurance already has provisions for us providing this service. We are specifically putting a statement within the contracts with the different villages and entities that will call out that they are responsible for reimbursing the city for fees incurred related to their expense.
Report or minutes to be filed.
Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for August 15th, 2024.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Ohio Public Works Commission grant application for Moracle Boulevard Water Line Replacement Phase 2.
Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy?
Jeremy, is this ahead of the game that we're doing this, or this is how long it's gonna take to get us to phase 2 to get through this application?
It's just the length of the process. So we turn this into the OPWC in October. It gets voted on. It actually, how their fiscal year works, we actually don't get the money until July of 25. So it's kind of a year offset with that.
Okay.
Other questions? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding 5th Capital Improvement Appropriation of 2024.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for August 2024.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Howard Run Ditch Cleaning Project number 325-49500.
Questions or comments? Mr. Russell?
Jeremy and I discussed this prior to this being placed on the agenda. Water and Sewer is going to discuss this at our meeting tomorrow, and Jeremy and I thought it was best to give this a first reading and also put some dollars in there to help with the discussions that Water and Sewer will have, and we'll come back with a recommendation on how to proceed on this for this second reading of this ordinance.
Ms. Frishy?
A lot of questions today from the article in the paper that we're pulling the funds from ARPA dollars from the Fort Findlay. I'm telling people it'll be discussed maybe in Water and Sewer, but if we can maybe touch base on the reasoning and what we're forecasting on budgeting for 25 for the Fort Findlay real quick.
So pretty much, I mean, the Fort Findlay we're still in discussion with that, getting the community input with that. Because that had ARPA funds with that, and there's a deadline with the ARPA funds, we didn't want to put those in jeopardy. This was a larger scale project that we'd be able to use up those funds. So going into 25, now that we don't have ARPA funds as part of it, we will have to use capital funds to cover that cost. But there is a lot of discussion that needs to be had with that beforehand. Don't want to make any haste decisions on it, but in the same token, want to make sure that all the ARPA funds that were allotted to us are used up by the allotted date.
So
Ms. Frishy?
So would this be more appropriate to appropriation since it's not coming out of the Water and Sewer Fund? Since we're talking ARPA dollars, would that be better suited, Grant, since it's?
Mr. Russell?
Prior to talking with Jeremy about this, Councilman Wobser and I discussed this after the last meeting as to where it would be more appropriate appropriations or Water and Sewer, and obviously we settled on Water and Sewer. The reasoning was, I think, ongoing. The funding of this would more likely come out of Water and Sewer funds versus ARPA. ARPA is just a unique opportunity, and so the Water and Sewer Committee really answers kind of three questions tomorrow. Is this something we think appropriate for the city to take on? If so, how much money should we allocate towards it, and where should that money come from, ARPA or from utilities? We'll make a recommendation, and then obviously if you want to change where the money comes from, that's council's full choice, or that's council's prerogative. If that's something you can do at the second reading if you so desire.
Mr. Stashek?
I'll just share, for the benefit, since I think I have a conflict with regard to your meeting tomorrow, that we do have some concern in my office that we get those ARPA dollars spent. And by spent, it's not appropriated, it's actually spent and encumbered, billed. against a PO or a contract that we know we're going to have to pay. So it's a little bit different requirement than you've seen in the past with other grants. So just be aware of that as you folks consider it.
And you'll be seeing a letter from us or at the next council meeting addressing a lot of the ARPA funds with that.
Letter be filed.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding airport fuel budget appropriation request.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed. Committee reports.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Joshua Slough to vacate the east-west alley between Bank Street and South Blanchard Street located between lots 4671, 4672, 4715, and 4716 in the Park Addition. We recommend to approve as requested.
Mr. Russell.
Move for acceptance of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Discussion. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Joshua Slough to rezone 615 Edgar Avenue from R2 medium lot residential to R3 small lot residential. We recommend to approve as requested.
Mr. Palmer.
Move to accept the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Cam Brown to vacate a portion of undeveloped alley being the north-south alley between lot 4107 in the Joy Addition and lot 3408 in the Carnahan's Addition, hereinafter referred to as the undeveloped portion of West Sandusky Street. We recommend to approve as requested.
Mr. Palmer.
Move to accept the committee report.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye. Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Kim Swartzmiller, Office Manager with ProTech Rental Properties located at 740 Crystal Avenue, to reestablish a non-conforming use of the property as a car repair business. We recommend to approve the request as presented with approval from legal counsel.
Mr. Russell.
Move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Mr. Russell.
There's a condition on this, asking for opinion from the law director concerning the ability to establish conditions on the reestablishment of a non-conforming use. So if you're really into arcane zoning discussions, we can go into details on it, but I spoke with Don about this prior to the meeting, and he's said he's going to do some research on it. And but in essence, the desire of the committee was to ensure that whatever business was operating there was doing so in harmony with the neighbors, and ensuring that we had such protection on that.
Other questions or comments? All in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss cannabis dispensary zoning. We recommend to have regional planning with C2 and I1, 1,000 feet and 1,500 feet map presented to the committee, along with modifications to the zoning code.
Mr. Russell.
Move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. Discussion. Mr. Russell.
So this was an interesting conversation about how to handle cannabis dispensaries, and state of Ohio already has on their recommendations or their rules for medical dispensaries that there's a 500-foot buffer around playgrounds, schools, churches, a couple other structures. And they also give us the ability to establish a limit of how many stores are available, 0, 1, 2, no limit, etc. And then the council, or the committee, excuse me, discussed as to what would be an appropriate zoning for the establishment of these, of a dispensary. And the committee kind of settled on C2 and I1 as appropriate zoning and classifications, and then looked at the overlay maps and thought that 500 feet was probably a little bit too small, that we would like to look at a map with 1,000-foot buffer and also a 1,500-foot buffer. And so that's what that language is talking about. And then we also are asking Hancock Regional Planning to come back with the actual zoning code language that would implement these restrictions for dispensaries. And also, I think part of it was making them a conditional use in C2 and I1, so that they would have to appear in front of City Planning Commission in order to get approved to operate. So that's where we're going with this. We'll have another meeting probably in the next month, I would expect, and then hope to see as we progress zoning code changes in front of council sometime in Q4.
Ms. Frishy?
C2 is Tiffin Avenue. Am I right, Grant? Or Trenton Avenue, Tiffin Avenue? What is C2 in our,
Local,
not downtown or?
it's I think it's the general commercial.
Okay. And then you're planning on putting some restrictions on how many we're gonna allow in the community. I rather just see them in I1, but you're gonna look at doing restrictions on top of that once you have his maps, detailed information.
That is a discussion point, yes. And I would, judging from the conversation amongst, we only had 3 members at present, but based on the 3 folks there, I would think there was, I think the general consensus is that some kind of limit would be appropriate. However, the state also might be limiting it based on licensing. So we're also still kind of, every week you look at what the state is, if they've added any more nuggets of to their level of how they're implementing it too. But yeah, I think generally speaking, we would see a limit on the total number.
All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The committee report is adopted. Legislation, we start with resolutions.
First reading for Resolution 28, 2024. A resolution stating what services the City of Findlay, Ohio will provide to the territory proposed to be annexed to the City of Findlay, Ohio, situated in Allen Township, County of Hancock, State of Ohio, and being a part of the northwest and southwest quarter of Section 31 and the northeast and southeast quarter of Section 36, Township 2 North, Range 11 East, a tract of land consisting of 21.724 acres of land, more or less, hereinafter referred to as the County Road 220-99, Sheets Annexation. First reading for Resolution 29, 2024, a resolution transferring funds within appropriated funds and declaring an emergency.
Ordinances.
Third reading for Ordinance 2024-103, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance 2024-103.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2024-107, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the City of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the municipal building LED replacement Phase 2, project number 319-42700, appropriating funds thereto and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2024-108, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Jeremy, is there any incentive to get this passed tonight?
Yeah, all these funds are going to be used by our street department, so the sooner that we can get the funds over to them, then that way they can continue on with resurfacing of a couple streets and alleys.
Mr. Palmer.
I move that council's statutory rules be suspended and this ordinance be given its third reading.
Second, Mr. Hellman. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Frishy?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Rules of council been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its third reading.
Ordinance 2024-108.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2024-108.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
Wasn't these funds for chargebacks to other departments that were working staff?
Well, it'd be chargebacks for the street department to this project as well, so we have to
Okay.
cover that, but I mean, majority of this too is for our street department to perform resurfacing.
And then what, did you end up figuring out what streets we're talking about? 'Cause I know you didn't have that at the last meeting. That they're gonna get done this year.
It was, Glendale, and there was one more, sorry, I didn't realize, yes, at the last one, but a lot of this is gonna be going towards alleys as well.
Okay.
All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2024-109, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to file for energy efficiency and conservation block grant funds, and if awarded, sign the agreements in order to receive funds from the U.S. Department of Energy for the installation of new energy efficient windows and doors at the city of Findlay Airport located at 1615 Gray Street, Findlay, Ohio, as well as authorize the Hancock Regional Planning Commission to implement the EECBG program for the aforementioned voucher application and declare an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Since this is just an application for a grant, I move that council's statutory rules be suspended and this ordinance be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its third reading.
Ordinance 2024-109.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2024-109.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2024-110. An ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to apply for and execute the necessary grant applications and agreements to receive grant funds from the Ohio Public Works Commission for Phase 2 of the replacement water line on Moracle Boulevard running under I-75 to existing 12-inch main on Lima Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Since this is another grant application ordinance, I move that council's statutory rules be suspended and this ordinance be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Hellman. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2024-110. Ordinance 2024-110.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2024-110.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
How are we doing on all of that boring and stuff that we're working on the sewer and water lines? And are we expecting additional cost on any of these projects happening out in West Park? This is Moracle
I
going,
guess, what are you talking, boring?
well, we're digging, we're going through
Oh,
bedrock.
the sanitary line?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's moving along,
but
we're
we're not
hammering through rock.
anticipating this to be an issue since this will be a boring project, right?
No, this will be an open cut.
Oh, it will be?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2024-111, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids where required and enter into a contract or contracts for construction of various projects in accordance with the 2024 department equipment list, appropriating and transferring funds for said capital expenditures and declaring an emergency. Boy, I couldn't get that. Let's see, first reading for replacement ordinance 2024-112, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
Jeremy or Rob, what's the timing on this? Do we have time to give this a second reading?
We can go for a second reading, but due to the sales that they've been up and how we've been we're in this position again this year, the second reading would be fine, but we'd like to have this third reading next council meeting if possible.
Mr. Stashak.
That's great. I'm going to suggest then that we get together and take a look at the cash flow into the fund and your anticipated final cash balance that you're expecting based on the budget and the revenues and expenses through the end of the year. Because if we're truly selling at a good profit, we should be able to use airport money for this should council choose to do that rather than general fund. It was an open question. It can go either way, but if we can do that and keep it in the airport fund, it keeps it clean, and that way we've got a cleaner budget for next year when we get into the budgeting cycle.
Mr. Martin.
But when the revenue comes in, it goes back to the general fund, so therefore we have to get the money out of the general fund to put back in the budget because we're selling more than we actually budgeted for in '24, correct?
Mr. Stashak.
That is incorrect.
That's
we
how
can
you
sit
explained
down
it
and
before.
talk. No, we can sit down and talk about the budget fundamentals again if you like, but the independent funds, water, sewer, airport, parking, streets, their expenses and their revenues go into those appropriate funds. So airport revenue comes into the airport fund. Now there is a caveat to that, like we do with the income tax. When income tax comes in at a level that exceeds the budget, the budgeted revenues, what I do is I come to this body and I say, hey, I've got extra income tax. I have changed the certificate. And by changing the certificate, we then ask for an appropriation so it can be applied for the budgeting. And if they come in under, the same thing has happened a few times. So the steps are the money comes in. If the money exceeds revenue expectations and you desire to spend it, then the state of Ohio says, I am obligated to update the certificate so that council could then appropriate the money for the expenditures. So it'll be a good lesson, and we'll go through it, and you guys can make a decision. The administration certainly can express their preference, and council can approve or disapprove as to where the money comes from. But certainly, we won't be slowing down getting it done.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Mayor?
Yeah, I would just note, based off of our forecast of the airport revenue, this would be a significant hit, and I would recommend it move through the general fund, but we're happy to meet with the auditor to discuss it further.
Old business. Mr. Hellman.
I've got a question. I slipped a cog here when you were talking about 2024-110, excuse me. And Councilman Frischie asked a question about that as well. And it was indicated by Mr. Calb that was going to be an open cut. You're going to do an open cut over I-75?
No, there's already a bore underneath 75. So phase one, we're tying on to that section from the I-75 bore that's already existing. It's a 10-inch. We're bringing that 12-inch down as part of phase one. This is the second phase to go down Lima Avenue. So that way we have a constant 12-inch loop through that area. Because right now, it pretty much gets, not to get into the weeds, it gets fed into from a 12-inch into a 10-inch to split off into a 6-inch and 6-inch through the whole system. So this will give a 12-inch loop. So that way, if one side goes down, you got two 12-inch feet coming into the area.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's why it'll be open cut, because most of it will be along Morkel and Lima Avenue.
Got it. Thank you.
Other old business. New business. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Just clarify on the streets. So Balsley, Glendale, we have a large patch section on that, and then if time, weather, and money allows, we're going to try to get on Maple as well.
Thank you. Other old business. New business. Mayor. Oh, Mr. Wolves.
This past week, I think people in Findlay started to receive their gas aggregation letters. I know I got mine. My mother received hers. And I guess this is for Rob. This is your project, Rob. Don't you normally head this thing up? Thank you. So just a couple of comments on this. And we deal with this, whenever we go through this process, and it's a positive opt-out. You have to opt out, otherwise you're in it regardless. And this year, the letter was that you had two choices to be able to opt out. You either had to call them on an 800 line, or you had to email or had to mail them cut off the bottom of the letter, go find your 15-digit Columbia gas account number, fill that in, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it at your expense, and send it back. And I get it. That doesn't sound like much, but to me, you know what? If these folks want our business, I would say, look, we need to make this opt-out option a lot easier for our people to do. They should have an online option, way to get that done. It should come with an envelope that's prepaid for them to be able just to fill it in and send it back in the mail. To me, this is a little bit onerous, and it seems like it gets more difficult every time we get into this process.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you for that input. It's actually a pretty consistent message that I've fielded quite a few phone calls in the last week. So we are looking at how we can streamline this and make it a lot easier and it's more clear. So thank you for that.
Other new business, Mr. Russell.
Just a quick note, it is National Roundabout Week or something to that effect. And I was not aware of this until our friends at ODOT sent us a email about it. But what really surprised me is the statistics at Lima Avenue and the fact that the roundabouts have reduced the total crashes by 85% and injury crashes at that intersection by 88%. And that's I just found those statistics pretty remarkable and worth noting. I am a heavy user of that intersection, both on car and on bicycle, and find it very easy to use. And bravo to ODOT for coming up with the design and implementing it.
Mayor.
Yeah, just a couple of quick items. We did send out earlier today a news release, but since it's kind of a last minute thing, Saratoga will be closed tomorrow for some road work as well as bridge repair. And then parts of McManus will also be closed. So we have put that out on our social media and sent it out to news outlets, but just since it was sent out kind of last minute, wanted you guys to be aware of that. Additionally, thank you to all the council members that attended the Strick Center ribbon cutting. It was a great day, a wonderful event. So awesome to see how years of work finally came together to really create a unique space that is going to serve our community and region well. We had the state fire marshal and deputy fire marshal both present at that, and they were in awe of what we accomplished and really wanted to just encourage us to keep up investing in training. It is such a critical part. And one of the things, I'm very excited for our first responders to be able to use it and to be able to train and train together and train repeatedly, because that saves lives. But I also am very excited that it's going to be able to serve the volunteer fire community. And though the city of Findlay, may not directly utilize them often, they are our mutual aid. And ensuring that they, one, are trained to be able to meet the needs of our communities is really important. But keeping themselves safe is also really, really critical. So as someone who, my stepfather was a firefighter, it's always near and dear to my heart to making sure that they have proper support and training, as well as our law enforcement. I just want to note, we'll be sending out a media release the next couple of days, but our new K9 will be completing his training this Friday and will be starting over the weekend. So Axel Fry we had a lot of other fun names, but they were denied by the officer. He had Axel evidently sounded cooler than small, but additionally, I wanted to just note, so a couple of you folks attended Governor Ono's visit from Japan. We were really appreciative that Governor Ono took the time as part of the Midwest U.S. to stop in Findlay on his visit and bring a delegation. just to continue to focus on our relationship with Japan and the investment that has been made over the many decades in the city of Findlay, and how we continue to strengthen that partnership to not only benefit our local economy, our cultural exchange, but also our educational exchanges. And with our Friendship City relationship that we continue to bolster, but also the University of Findlay is continuing to expand their programs and partnerships with universities in Saitama and Fukui prefectures to have more students coming here. So it was a great day, and just want to highlight that. The final item that I want to call your attention to is just an FYI. I set in front of you a media release that was sent out just a little bit ago related to the City of Findlay crime statistics. This has been something that has been included in our KPIs on a quarterly basis, but since it was kind of out of sync, wanted to just draw your attention to it and call out the great work that our law enforcement is doing. Our non-violent crimes are down year to date under our 3-year average. Our violent crimes are trending at or below the 3-year average. Additionally, our traffic enforcement has increased. I know Chief Mathias is really encouraging officers to get out and be proactive, enforcing speeding, focusing on noise violations. We have a lot more work to be done, but are really pushing that as proactive community enforcement. And with that, our citations are up as well. So we're making sure that we're holding people accountable, which then also leads to that our traffic accidents are down significantly. So I think that those are all great things that we wanted to call out and just share that, in a time when folks are talking about national crime on the rise, that's not what we're seeing in our community. This is the community we're responsible for. So I just wanted to continue to share facts on what we're seeing here locally. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Stashak?
I had a conversation with Mr. Wobser. Thanks for sending that email out. We're going to, due to necessity, move the budget meeting to before your next council meeting. The nice thing is we discussed it, and the closer it is to the council meeting, the shorter it has to be. So that'll work to your benefit. However, I am going to make you aware, and I'm going to send an email over to the administration. We've been doing some additional training on findings for recoveries in the state of Ohio by the state auditor's office. It touches everything from payroll to projects. It goes to some of the things we've talked about over the last year or two with regards to even other organizations that we help. So I'm going to ask that the administration break out where they're looking at helping other organizations, whether it be the DFID or the schools or even what we're doing with the city income tax, because it looks like from what we're learning, there's going to have to be some additional detail given to council and some additional approvals that are going to have to come from council where we're just helping our neighbors. And I don't think it's a bad thing. We think it's a good thing, but we want to handle as much of that as we can through our basic budget so we don't end up in here with other special things doing it. That information over. That'll become part, that'll have to likely become part of that budget. So we'll go from there and a day at a time. So see y'all the first part of October. Thank you for changing that, Councilman Wolfson.
Other new business? Hearing none, we will invite 2 public speakers this evening. Our first is Randy Otterman. Randy, you ready? Randy resides in Ward 4, and he'd like to speak to Fort Findlay Playground.
Thank you for allowing me to come this evening. Wasn't planning on talking this evening since I just spoke on this issue a couple weeks ago, but since it's hot in the press for the last couple of days, I thought I'd add a few last words, and yes, I still get a paper copy of the newspaper. One thing that I wanted to check on was the survey results. I got on after it closed and tried to pull those up. I got to the page where it would show me the master plan, but didn't see anything about actually looking at the survey results. I don't know if that's, could be my mistake. I mean, I always tell my grandkids I'm a boomer, not a zoomer, but if somebody could, I'd actually like to see a paper copy, or if somebody could explain that to me afterwards, I'd appreciate it. I did see the master plan, which I have my own opinions on, but I'd like to just read a little bit out of the Courier article. The city's August release of the $1.4 million rebuild plans for the Fort Findlay Playground met with a considerable amount of pushback on social media, with many residents arguing for preserving the miniature fort. City officials said the little fort is beyond its service life and should be demolished. Results of a public opinion survey favor keeping the fort. And that's kind of where I'm at, and you know that from the last time. So what would I like to see right now? I would like to see this because of the fact that you've taken the money from the ARPA dollars, and we're gonna have to replan the budget, just to put it on hold for now. This doesn't need to be done this year. It probably doesn't need to be done next year. I know it needs to be done sometime. So if we could hold off on this until we get a real solid idea of exactly what people want, what they're going to be happy with, what we can work with on that. I also think if we wait another year or two, most of you are aware that next year's an election year for the city officials. We may be talking with some different people by the time we get back to it in a year or two from now. And that's all I wanted to do. I think that the city has some other serious issues, and you know what they are, to deal with, and that this isn't one of them. And we can just put this on hold for right now and make a good plan that'll make everybody happy at some point in the future. Thank you.
Questions or comments from Mr. Ottoman, Ms. Frishy?
Jeremy or Mayor, I don't know, where are we done spending money on engineering design? At this point, everything's completed there. There's no additional spending that needs to happen.
Right now, the next step is coming up with the specs and the plans for it. So I've contacted them, told them don't develop those at this time.
So should we pass an ordinance or a resolution to pause that project so everybody's clear and it's on the record that we're on pause since we haven't pulled the ARPA funds yet, but we possibly might be.
So a couple of items. I don't think we need to take any action now. Our intention was to gather the information from the survey results and then go back to Parks and Recreation and make sure all the council members were invited to provide more input. One of the things we heard was obviously the initial renderings that we put out were very lacking. So when we put out the new master plan for the area, it better showed some of the fort elements that are incorporating, and they don't quite show the scale. The actual fort entrance that is proposed are, give me the dimensions, like 15 by 15 feet, like 30 feet tall. They are significant climbing structures with a bridge across them. So this project is on pause, primarily so that we can have further discussion and the lead times that would be necessary to do any of the development. So we will be coming back for a proposal on how to spend the American Rescue Plan Act funds. This park project, though, also has other funds already contributed to it, and it's going to have to be done regardless. So I think we're good to keep that sat. With the survey results, there should be scrolling on the home page under Fort Findlay. They should be available there. If not, I will double check. I'll shoot a message to some folks to make sure if I don't see them after this meeting. We had 1,500 responses, so if I showed you the entire thing, it would be very cumbersome and not probably very fun. We do have a multi-page summary that is on the website, or was supposed to be on the website, that kind of summarized the feelings. I think the general sentiment was people understand that it's a 25-year-old park that's made out of wood and has been sitting out the elements, and you can only repair so much, especially again when we look at, you go and visit and you look underneath a couple inches the mulch, you can easily stick objects through the pillars. Those are items that we really can't, unless we wanted to just rebuild it as it is, all wood again, to really keep that, we're gonna have to make changes. So at this point in time, it will be a project that we'll probably have more discussion on next year, and then look at construction the following year, again, focused on that overall master plan. So I don't think at this point in time we need to make any changes with the ARPA money, because again, we would be recommending that those be taken away so that they can be spent down this year to meet the federal timelines.
Ms. Frishy?
My comment to you, Mayor, on that was I heard a lot of people that wanted to preserve the Fort Findlay playground, and there was a lot of questions, and yes, there's a little bit of area here and there, but I think there was some request or ask, I don't know if you got it formal or not, Jeremy, that they'd like to know what the cost factors would be to maintain that fort for another 25, 50 years or whatever it might be. They want to know what exactly is wrong with the park and what would it cost to fix it. We obviously have been maintaining it. So I don't want people to think we're not. And because you go out there, you see pieces and material replaced. And if it wasn't safe because we're sticking a pencil through a main structure piece, then we probably have an obligation to close the park. So I don't think we're anywhere close to closing it. So I would hate for us to be having this project sitting and the engineering company spending any dollars on it before we able to answer the 1,500 statements or questions, because maybe that discussion is preserving it. I think, Dan, you had gone out and talked with people as well, and kind of the impression I got, I didn't talk to you, but that nobody thought the sky was falling over there. And so I think people asked valid questions, and I would just hate to keep spending money on design until we're there. So I would think a resolution to pause isn't ending it. It's just waiting. So when we redo capital and answer some of the public's questions, that we are going in the right direction of what the public wants.
Mayor?
Yes, you're right. We are not to the point where we need to shut down the park. We're trying to avoid that because that is a very used park that we want to have available. As we all know, it takes about a year of planning to get to construction. It's going to take a couple of months for construction, weather depending. Our plan is to keep the existing park open while we build and then be able to relocate so that you have a functioning park the entire time. So we have a little bit of runway. However, you're right. When you go out, it doesn't look like the sky is falling and we're not putting people in danger. I would challenge how many structural engineers were out there to look at it, because you don't always see, for example, telephone poles, when they take them down, they look fine, and then you look in the center and it's completely disintegrated. So we are finding the balance of not having to shut down the park. We can get estimates of what it would cost in today's dollars to rebuild it in its same form and function. I think that, continuing to kind of maintain it, we probably could do that for 3 years, but it's going to start to have to close down certain elements of the park for safety purposes. So.
Jeremy?
Just on the financial side, to answer your question on that, so those are ARPA funds for it, but those are considered obligated towards it. So that does not fall into the end of the year of this year. It's 26 that it falls in on that. So just closing out a contract with a firm for that is tough to do, and then trying to get them back on board. So, so those funds are considered obligated per the ARPA regulations.
And I wasn't asking
All right.
to cancel anything. I just would hate for us to be spending money. And I think that the message that people are absorbing is that we're still going forward with the administration's agenda first, and that's a harsh word, I think you'll think, but that's how they're feeling on that. And I think we need to do our due diligence of answering those questions before we spend another penny.
Comments noted. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Our second speaker this evening is Haiti Sadler. She lives in Ward 6, and she would like to speak to the illegal immigrants in our community.
Dear council members, on January 31st, I sent a letter to be read into the council meeting on February 6th, and that letter was not read. Instead, it was met with response from the mayor for the illegal immigration task force. But I wanted to read that letter, or parts of it, that relate to what is happening today. Dear council members, as a former member of the community outreach team for the Strategic Planning Committee, a frontline surveyor, and a scribe at the roundtable meetings, I can confidentially say that confidently say that a safe and connected city were not at the top responses that the strategic plan has in place as goals. Neither is an active community. In addition to the goals mentioned, one of the 7 goals listed in the plan is a caring government. Yet our local government does not lend an ear to the people who speak, as is agreed on by thousands in our community. The McPherson neighborhood that did not want apartments set up and the increased water rates are just 2 prime examples. Through my outreach to the community, one of the most common responses when asked about concerns for our city was illegal immigrants, as they were never addressed by the city. Drug trafficking and human trafficking were also major concerns of the citizens, yet these concerns were not addressed at all through Findlay Ford's strategic plan. Rather than exemplifying the caring government goal of addressing the concerns of illegal immigrants, drug trafficking, and human trafficking, you support Mayor Mirren's efforts in opening the doors of our city to invite them in. The residents of the city of Findlay still have the same concerns as before, except perhaps now with more distress and even anxiety. Will City Council be approving housing for them through taxpayer dollars called grants that the city of Findlay so freely takes without giving any benefits to the community members as other cities give? What I have noticed is there's an invasion at the U.S. border, and Findlay is complicit. There's human trafficking at our border, and Findlay is complicit. The United States is $35 trillion in debt, and Findlay is complicit. Biden's policies are intentionally destroying our country, and Findlay is complicit. Will City Council look at the Build Back Better agenda continuously funded through grants, private partnerships, and stakeholders that is instilled through the United States Conference of Mayors that's paid by the city of Findlay to participate? Is there no concern for the socialist agenda that this administration is ushering in by inviting illegal immigrants to live in our city and tap into our nonprofit organizations? How are you meeting your strategic plan goal of being a caring government if you don't take heed to the concerns of your constituents? Today, I'm requesting that you, as members of City Council that govern the city, give more thought to the approvals you make regarding our taxpayer dollars called grants. Prior to Springfield making national news, our city was in direct contact with Springfield regarding the influx of immigrants in our community. And at the budget hearing, Chief Matthias reported that the people will come in waves and the waves will get bigger. The mayor has reported that no crimes are being committed by illegal immigrants, yet we have Jackson Darzil sitting in our county jail for gross sexual imposition, waiting for his conviction prior to his deportation. When City Council is removed, retires to Florida, and the mayor moves up to the ladder, what are you leaving as your legacy in our city? This agenda has become dangerous to our city, and the #1 strategic goal of being a safe city will never happen when inviting illegal immigrants into our community. Biden's agenda has become dangerous to our country, just as our local government has become dangerous to our community for following it. No questions, thank you.
Excuse me, no business will occur after executive session. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Exec session.